Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John, and I occasionally blather on endlessly about knives and other cutlery-related matters, much to the dismay of my family and friends, who really wish that I would take up a healthier habit, shall we say. I'm making this video today to cover a couple of things. This is a Sharpal 325 1200 grit diamond stone that I have purchased from Amazon in its holder with its guide. And this is a Hapstone T1 currently attached to a Tramontina brand commercial grade Santoku knife, which when we carried those at my workplace a few years ago I thought were just awesome, and I bought a couple. I have since moved on to other knives, but it will do for tonight's demonstration purposes. This is a Klein Tools 3mm ball end driver, which I found to be much more useful for tightening and loosening these little screws here and here than the included 3mm hex head. This is a Knipex pliers wrench. This is what I use. Whoops. However, you could probably use whatever size these are. They look to be 10mm to me, but they might be 12s. Wrench or a crescent wrench or whatever you find. This is a Craftsman 16 foot fully marked off tape measure, and that is how you make sure that these are the same distance from one side to the other, which at the moment is set at 3.5 inches, because with that at 3.5 inches and this guide on the stone, that is what looks to me to be somewhere in the neighborhood, once you account for the taper of the blade, to 17 degrees or so, which is where I want this edge to be tonight. So you could use this if you had a steady hand. I do not have a steady enough hand to use that to sharpen a knife, so therefore the Hapstone T1 guide. The mat that is underneath this is an Arteza brand self-healing mat, whatever that means. I've got the dark side down because, here, let me show you. When you do this on the light side of the mat, it just gets pretty ugly pretty quick. So I decided to see what the other side of the mat will do. Also, you'll want to buy the big mat, because the small mat, this will ride off the top, because quite often your stroke will be over 12 inches, and there you go. So anyway, quick tutorial on what an edge is. An edge is removing material off of a rounded knife apex such that it forms a pointy apex that cuts better. During the process, you will have burrs from one side to the other. As you sharpen, I will show you how to remove those burrs. And at the end, we will polish and do final burr removal on a strop. Now, there are a multitude of things that you can use to put on a strop. I recommend diamonds. This is what I first put on that strop. 1 micron diamond spray, 5 carats per ounce. This is a 2-ounce bottle that I purchased from Amazon. I then reinforced that on my strop with gunny juice, 1 micron. This is a poly diamond or polycrystalline diamond emulsion that's a little more effective than the other one. However, either one will work. I just like the more effective one. So in order to get a edge on this, we're going to have to do a fair amount of sharpening. It's not terribly dull, but it's not where it ought to be. So this is a spray bottle. It's not necessary to use this on this type of a diamond plate, but I do it just so that it doesn't wear out quite as quick. And away we go. So once you've locked everything down tight on your knife, and this will take a little trial and error to figure out, but you'll probably figure it out pretty easily. You'll notice, well, let me see here, that I have tried to adhere to the angle of the knife primary grind. This is the primary grind here. The edge is a secondary grind or secondary bevel. I am adhering as close as possible to the primary bevel, just for security's purposes. And just to keep things consistent, I've jammed the spine as close to these screws as I could get them, so that next time I do this, if I do the same thing, I'll get the same angle. And away we go. As you can see, perhaps, I've already removed a fair amount of metal. Checking the edge shows me that I've already got a burr all the way down. Yep. And the noise coming off this mat is a bit unpleasant, so I'm going to add a little bit of oil to the tip here to lubricate its passage across the mat to reduce the noise. And we have burr almost all the way down. There's a patch right there where it's not quite. There we go. We have burr all the way down. Now, in order to remove the burr, you'll want to do very light slicing strokes. Some people recommend very light trailing strokes. As long as you're light and you don't lean into them too hard, it should work. Yeah, the burr is almost completely gone. It's greatly reduced. That's going to make it much easier to reach an apex on the other side. In fact, I could probably at this point simply strop the knife and it would cut phone book paper, judging by what I'm feeling via the old Murray Carter method here. This, by the way, is how you judge sharpness on an edge. Very lightly press in like that. I could, but I won't. Now, the first time you remove this stone from its plastic carrier, you may need an alternate means of persuasion. I found from the factory that this was jammed in here so tight that I couldn't simply do that. And you'll notice perhaps a mark on the stone right there. That is because I opened up my drawer and used an Estwing made in Japan, patent pending nail remover and pry bar to get that out of there. I could have chosen something a little less aggressive, I think, because I did damage the stone a bit. However, it's not really going to make much difference in the final product, I don't think. But if you'd like to be a little more careful, be a little more circumspect, find a different tool to do that job. Okay, press that in nice and even. Make sure you're fully, thoroughly seated. Down we go. There we are. Once you've done this a few times, you'll be able to tell when you get a burr all the way up. And again, I'm running into that little spot right in there that's being a little bit stubborn with me. Doesn't want to form a burr quite as well as the rest. Okay. Yeah, there we go. I can feel the difference. Now, even though I used that little device right there to see if I could get close to 17 degrees, judging by the thinness of my bevel here, I am suspecting I'm a lot closer to 20 than 17, but that's okay. It's still gonna cut. And let's see if I've got a bevel the other way, or a burr rather. Yeah. It's easier to feel when it's dry. Also, when you run one of those microfibers across the edge, the way it catches will tell the tale. Yep, we are nice and sharp. So, burr removal strokes on the stone to finish apexing it. There we go. And then trailing strokes. There we are. Let me see. Yeah, that did not catch hardly at all. I got the slightest bit of burr there at the very heel. Yeah. Now, I could take this right now, from what I'm feeling here. Yeah, I could take that and cut phone book paper with it. In fact, let me demonstrate that for you guys. Pop this loose. This, by the way, is at the very limit of this screw. I may put another hole in this right down here just to make that a little easier. Okay. There we go. This, by the way, is my standard sharpness test for knives. I don't bother trying to whittle hair because, well, frankly, how often in your daily life do you need to whittle a hair? Some people are very, very good and they need a very acute or very high level of sharpness test, and that's a good test for them. I am not that good at sharpening, and therefore I do not need that kind of a test. If your knife can do this, whoop, well, maybe it can't do that. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. Must have got that damp a little bit. Let's flip that over. Whoop, 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 whoop. Ha ha ha. You can see it cutting though. Yeah. Here's another test with folded phone book paper. Listen carefully. No catches, nice and sharp. However, in order to clean up the edge, remove any final traces of burrs, yada yada, this is where the diamonds on leather strop come in handy. And away we go. Ideally, I would have a strop mounted at exactly the same height as my stones so that I could use the T1 to guide my stropping efforts. But I don't have that, so I'm just kind of freehanding it here. Wipe all the diamond off now that I'm done. Yep. Very nice edge. Very usable edge. It's got lots of bite. Oh yeah, it'll shave. That's how you can tell a sharpener. He hasn't got much hair left on his left arm. Or his right arm if he's a lefty. Let's try that phone book test again and see if stropping did me any good. Here we go. I'd say that was a slight improvement. Is it good enough to go the other way? Well, for a little while. Then we lose lateral strength in the paper right down there. Yeah, but I'd say we're good. Thus concludes the lesson, folks. If you've got one of these, and one of these, and one of these, and some of this, you can have a very sharp one of these. Well, anyway, folks, from my house to yours, I wish you all the best. I give grace and peace and love. Amen.